Welcome to the Property Management Law Solutions Podcast. Your host, Attorney Tim Baldwin, will guide you in all things property management, law, markets, politics, and commentary. Your property is his priority. Here's your host, Attorney Tim Baldwin.
Welcome to this podcast, everybody. This is the Property Management Law Solutions podcast, and I'm really excited about the show today because we're going to talk to our new attorney, or newer. She's been here with us for a little while, but we're going to talk to Shannon Alfonso. She is located in Tampa, and we have an office down there that she takes care of for us and services our clients. So I wanted the audience to be able to get to know Shannon and just have a conversation with her. And so you can get to know her better and have some fun here. So Shannon, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Hi, thanks, Tim.
So
happy to be here. I think it's been 4 months now that I've been here, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So let's see, you started in, was it September? October.
It was October, yeah.
So yeah, 4 months. Yep. Does it seem like it's been longer than that? Maybe.
It almost feels like I've always been here.
There you go. Well, that could be a good thing. Maybe it's like you've always been part of the family. No, we've really enjoyed having you with us at the firm, and you're doing really, really good work. And I'm impressed with so many of your characteristics and talents, and so really happy to have you on the team. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself. You can get as generic and general as you like to, or if you want to share some details, that's fine too. But just let the audience know a little bit about who you are, where you come from.
Thanks, Tim. I'm new to lawyering, relatively. This is a second career for me. My past life was focused on IT, and I worked as a computer specialist for FEMA, deployed during disasters. And I did a lot of different things just because of the nature of the work, but it was also related to legal because everything that we did at FEMA was based off of the Stafford Act, and we had to stay within compliance. I worked specifically with local municipalities, helping them get their grants in after a disaster to help them recover. So I got to move around and create ad hoc databases. I worked as a grant writer. I managed grant writers. I worked as a trainer in DC, teaching people coming out to the field how to write the grants. So I had a whole lot of experience there with that and really enjoyed it. But when it came time to make a family, I have two amazing kids. It just wasn't going to fit that lifestyle because I was working on the road 8 and 9 months at a time. So after that experience, I realized that I really enjoyed the legal aspect of it. And that was the thing that drove me to decide to become a lawyer. And here I am today.
Wow. Well, first off, people should really like you because you help them get money in their communities to rebuild quickly after a disaster of some kind. So they should like you already, Shannon.
I'm not sure that everyone has the best opinion of FEMA.
Well, that may be true. But still.
But we tried.
That's good. So first of all, where did you go to undergrad?
I went to University of Tampa and finished up my degree there. I had started at the University of Houston when I was living out there, and then I came back to Tampa, which is where I was originally from, born here. And My grandparents needed some help, so I moved back and finished my degree at University of Tampa in computer information systems.
Very good. And then you went to law school to which school?
Stetson University over in Gulfport.
All right. Yeah. You're
Local Tampa all the way.
Well, I went to school at Cumberland School of Law. Of course, I was really young when I went to law school. I was, 20 years old when I moved up to Birmingham, and I graduated when I was 23. So I was a kid. I mean, really, I was a kid. So in my mind, I was a late bloomer. So I wanted to stay closer to home. Of course, my parents sort of encouraged me to stay closer to home, and they were persuasive.
Pretty likable.
Well, yeah. So I went to Birmingham. So that was only 3 hours away. But as I've gotten older and you think about, man, I wish I would have experienced certain things. I often think some of my friends actually went to Stetson. I was like, and now that I've been to Tampa, so recently especially, I'm like, man, I really like Tampa. It's a really happening city, beautiful, a lot going on. So I'm a little bit jealous now about that.
Well, but the Panhandle is lovely too. So I think the whole Gulf Coast, and you can see all the people that have moved here recently also think that this is a great place to be, which has had a huge impact on property management.
It's true. It's true. No, I like it in Pensacola, and the Panhandle it's beautiful. It's a great place to raise a family. Well, good. So so interesting. So you have a computer background, and what I've noticed about you, of course, I've told you, but your ability to analyze and your analytical skills are tremendous. They're off the charts, and which is obviously what good attorneys are made of. They're able to break things down into their components and apply the facts to that, to those legal principles. And so you have a real knack for it. So even though you're a newer attorney, that skill set of yours is tremendous. So you're off to a really, really good start. So tell us a little bit about you went to law school for a reason, to become a lawyer. You had a certain idea about what it may be like. So now you're on this side of it. Is there a difference between what you expected and what the reality is of the law practice?
One of the things coming into this profession late in life is that I already had interacted with a lot of legal situations. So I had bought and sold houses and had to interact with attorneys on various things to buy and sell a business. For contracts, I had, a wealth of experience. So a lifetime, basically. So I kind of had a sense of what it was that I was going to be doing. I think there are definitely some realities that have been a bit surprising in terms of how the courts operate.
Yeah, we get this. I mean, I know you're seeing it already when we're speaking to clients, and we have a body of law that we're dealing with, statutes that we're dealing with. And some of the clients have a better understanding about what some of these basic requirements in our field, landlord-tenant law. And so when something happens, a judge makes a decision that doesn't seem to line up squarely with the statute. They're like, well, wait a minute. How can that happen? How can they do that? It doesn't fit within the law. And the reality of it is that, well, share your experience from that perspective at this point.
Well, there's not consistency across the state. And, it's one thing when you're talking about consistency within court procedures of how they prefer to do this way or that way. But in how they interpret the plain meaning of words in a statute. We have had some situations come up recently where we're trying to say, okay, but the words say this.
Yeah.
And some judges get it and say, okay, that's what it says. There's no ambiguity. The legislative intent was this because the words say that. And some judges go, well, but I feel like maybe I should do this other thing.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
It is. It's fat, and really to me, it's fascinating because where the rubber meets the road, as the old cliche goes. It's like the judges are the gatekeepers. I mean, you have the legislature and you have the law, but the judges are the ones who are supposed to apply the law. And when they don't, it depends on what it is, but the remedy at times is you've got to wait to the end of the case to be able to file an appeal you got to wait for a final judgment because of the way the rules of procedure work in the appellate world. And then there are some judgments that you can file an appeal for before the final judgment. But then there's a very practical consideration of, well, we might still be able to get what we want in this case, even though the judge didn't necessarily do what they were supposed to do. If we just wait 2 weeks, we'll get the judgment. Like, we will win. Rather than, okay, we got to file a petition in the appellate courts and asking for relief. And then, of course, that takes time. It takes more money to get to that point. And so you've got to weigh out and balance which approach is best in that case. So, there's a lot of landlord-tenant cases out there, but in reality, there's very little landlord-tenant cases relative or compared to the number of evictions that are filed in Florida, because most people don't appeal,
Yeah, but like you said, once that gets through the courts at the appeal level and makes its way into that body of law, there's some of this stuff that we should be walking into courts with our documents all squared away, like, we're on a gravy train with biscuit wheels, because this is a done deal.
Yeah.
The language says this, so that's what's going to happen. But it does, like you said, get to the point where we have to get that clear in every judge's mind that's the reality of.
And what's interesting about this is a philosophical discussion, but it's sort of like this whole debate that happened in 1787, right? With the Constitution. We have states and then we have a national government. If we have states, there's more diversity, there's more capability of self-control from a local standpoint. But there's also this other side where there's this opportunity for abuse, where people's rights can be violated. And so we need a national government to, ensure these certain basic rights. And so, so moving that to what we're talking about, you can sort of see why people would say, well, why do we have all these little small jurisdictions where the judges can basically just kind of do whatever they want across the board, and the decisions vary so much? We should have a more cohesive system where judges are more accountable to this body of law that the legislators have passed. Anyway, because it's just very, very fascinating to me to see how widely these judges can vary and how they approach the exact same text, right? It's the same. They're all looking at the same thing. And yet there is such a variety of how they deal with those, with the statute.
Absolutely. But, I think there are, as you brought up, that concept of larger governmental entities having some control, and how far do we want to go with that? I think it's a fine balance between recognizing the local interests and recognizing the need to have some kinds of standards put in place that everyone abides by.
Yeah.
It's
well, and then of course the appellate courts are there for that reason. If you feel like you need to appeal, you can appeal. I mean, there's many instances where we could have appealed, we didn't. I mean, I believe 100% we would have won the issue, and that happens frequently. It's just like Shannon, you saw the legal updates that I was working on last night. So there's a case that came out where the judge said the landlord, whenever he moved the court to require the tenant to post double rent into the court registry because the tenant was a holdover, which is a statute that requires or it holds the tenant liable for 2 months or double rent when they're a holdover. The judge didn't do that because first the landlord didn't allege it in the complaint that the double rent was owed, and then the judge hadn't made a determination yet as a matter of fact from an evidentiary standpoint. So that's what that judge ruled there. So it's a learning lesson. It's something that you can help guide you in your practice. But I have won that argument on the flip side of it in front of other judges. So I go to a rent determination hearing. I say, Judge, this is a holdover. I mean, the lease clearly says it ends on this date. They didn't have permission. We have a notice that was attached to the complaint. They didn't have permission to be there after that date. They still are there. They're a holdover. They owe double rent. Judge says, yes, you're right. They owe double rent, and that's what they required them to put into the court registry. So, again, two different counties, two different judges, two different results, same issue.
Yeah, weighing the interests of the property owner against those of the tenant is sometimes really challenging, because I can see both sides of it. As somebody who has rented and had issues with landlords, or owned property that I've rented out, there are competing interests, and it's difficult in a situation where you're questioning whether or not this is a pay to play concern. And I know the court has ruled on that the concept of depositing money into the registry of the court does not amount to pay to play, because that's money you owed.
Yeah.
Money you should have anticipated spending anyway. And if you don't have it, then that just kind of goes to prove the point that you're not paying.
Yeah.
Whereas asking somebody to pay an additional amount before even having a final judgment saying that the lease has been properly terminated, I mean, that becomes a questionable territory of whether or not it's pay to play.
Yeah. Well, historically, even from a common law standpoint, there's always been situations and cases where for the plaintiff or for the defendant to be able to litigate an issue without surrendering some kind of a interest or right or privilege they may have, they have to post a bond. And the bond protects the other party in case they're wrong. If they're wrong, okay, well, at least we have a bond to protect the other party. So that's a common law principle, and it's been done for many, many years. And so, whenever the 50 states in America were beginning to roll out this Landlord-Tenant Act in the 70s, which, across the board, for the most part, this Landlord-Tenant Act was ratified by all the states. It's uniform. There's variances, there's differences. But, there was obviously a huge movement in America that this happened, because probably there was a lot of problems with consistency in these things that we're talking about. Judges were doing a wide variety of things. Landlords were taking advantage of tenants. Tenants were taking advantage of landlords. It was a mess, probably. I'm guessing. I didn't live back then, so I don't know. But I'm guessing that's what happened. That's why you had this big push. So now it's uniform. But one of the things that has been consistently implemented in these states is this requirement for tenants to post rent into the court registry to be able to have a defense raised. So, it's like it was a pretty widely accepted notion.
I think, yeah, again, it goes back to the idea that this was money you should have had on hand to pay. Even if you had an issue, you knew you were still required to pay this. And so you should have had it on hand. If you decide as a tenant to withhold, that's one thing, and that's within your right if you have followed the proper procedure to make a claim against the landlord. But there are requirements on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely an interesting body of law. It's particular because it touches so many cases. I was going to say too, you can go back to the judges. I'm going to ask you more questions personally because this is really we're here to get to know you better. But sometimes with a county judge or a local judge, when you have an issue that it appears, or maybe it's blatant, that they're wrong, sometimes you've got to consistently, you can appeal them, obviously. And if you win the appeal and the appellate court corrects them, chances are they're probably not going to repeat that decision in the future. But if you haven't done that, sometimes it's just a matter of consistency in showing the judge, as you file these cases time and time again, you're following the same motion, the same, and they see it all the time. And I've done this before And I won't name the judges or the county or whatever, but there was an issue where I thought the judge was wrong. They didn't require the tenant to post rent in an eviction that was not based on non-payment of rent, like a month-to-month termination, for an example. But the tenant still owed back rent, so we allege that in the complaint. And also, they have to post rent that accrues during the case. So these judges, there was 2 judges in the same county that would never order the tenants to post rent. I would file my motion for default. They wouldn't do it. It took me 2 years of filing the same motion. Eventually, after those 2 years, they corrected their decisions, and now they require the tenants to post rent no matter what the case is, because I think the statute is pretty clear. And in fact, there's a case that we cited recently in one of our briefs in a commercial case that said that in any action for possession, which is identical to how the residential side of it states. So anyway, the point of it is that sometimes it's just a waiting game. It's a patience game that hopefully the judges become more aware of the issues in the law.
Absolutely.
So tell us, so Property Management Law Solutions, so you got out of law school, you got your license, you became an attorney, and now you're sending out applications and you're interviewing for jobs and things like that. So obviously you're with us, you're with Property Management Law Solutions. Tell us kind of what was the thing that attracted you to our law firm, and kind of how do you see, what's the excitement for you? Hopefully there is some excitement, but what's the attractiveness to you?
There's a lot of excitement. And the thing that I found most appealing about your approach, Tim, and what you were trying to bring to Property Management Law Solutions and your clients was the efficacy that you can get from using technology-based solutions. And you had, when I came on board, you had already put together a whole range of implementations that made it easier for us to offer flat fee pricing, to bring better lawyering to more people, and help, I think, close the access to justice gap in some ways, by using those efficiencies. I think that your dedication to doing good work is remarkable in an area that seems to have a whole lot of people, lawyers, who are just using this type of lawyering, evictions in particular, as just a way to make some money. Yeah. Without having a great deal of concern for the implications of doing a good job.
Yeah.
So that was huge to me. You clearly are passionate about everything that you do, and I enjoyed the conversation with you, and just the idea that you were always open to exploring whatever I was bringing up. You were just like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And adding that into the conversation, willing to accept my ideas and opinions. And I was elated to join this team.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I did not pay you to say one of those words, okay? Just so everybody knows. I was really opening myself up to critique whenever I asked the question, but no, I appreciate that. It's, this body of law is, it touches a lot of people. There's a lot of landlords, there's a lot of tenants, there's a lot of investment companies, there's a lot of apartments, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of people out there that this touches. And unfortunately, I think, it can get a bad rap because a lot of landlords don't do it right. It's clear that they don't. Even the professional companies who, that's their job and they're supposed to know. They're not doing it right. Now, is it intentional? I don't think so, many times. But I think it's just lack of knowledge. I mean, think about it too. How much time do we spend in a day to learn this stuff? Well, it's all day. This is our job. We spend a lot of time learning, reading, studying.
It's constantly evolving.
And it's moving, right? It's moving. And so to become an expert in this body of law, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of experience. And certainly people who are in the business day to day, they don't have the time to, to dig like we do and to study like we do. they're really probably not expected to. But at the same time, like there are these rules in place that if you don't follow, you're going to cause a problem. So let's make sure you know the rules. And so that's from the beginning for me. I always thought that the education and the training aspect of this business was way more valuable than even the eviction work. I mean, the eviction.
Well, and to jump onto that, the concept that the window of time, legally speaking, is the blink of an eye. When you're talking about beginning to end, where this is a proceeding that happens, hopefully, if it's done well and we have everything we need. I mean, this happens so quickly that you don't have time to correct errors. You just have to start again.
Yeah.
If you mess something up. So that aspect, the training aspect, makes a huge difference, because starting again is the worst thing that you could have happen.
Yeah. Well, and we see that all the time. You're right. And time is money, as they say. And of course, in the rental business, whenever you have a tenant who's not paying rent, and then you go through a process. Well, the process is wrong. We've got to start over. So now you're delayed another month. It's costly. It's expensive to make mistakes. So yeah. But no, I appreciate what you said there, and I mean, you fit so nicely in this realm. You and I have very different personalities. I'm more of a tornado. You're more focused and calm, and cool, and collected. And but together, I think it works nicely to carry out the vision and the goal, which is to provide the best service we can at the lowest price we can, and make our customers happy, make our clients happy. So I think it works really nicely. What we're trying to do is to make this as scalable as possible. So it can be done on a large scale when you have the right system in place and the right training and the right leadership. Servicing more and more and more clientele is the goal, is the prize there, because I feel, and this is obviously a personal opinion, and it's going to sound arrogant, but I really feel like we provide a better service. I've seen a lot of what's out there. And at times when when a client, when a company comes to me, they become a client, I learn more about how things were done prior to their joining our law firm, or, hiring us. And I just see that there's just lack of attention to what's really going on in their business, or how they're doing things, or how they should set up their cases, and doing it the right way. And so, this is all we do, though. This is all we do is landlord-tenant law. Some law firms out there, I know that they do landlord-tenant, but they don't just focus on this. They do a lot of other things. I'm not sure. There's probably some other law firms that just do landlord-tenant, but I'm not aware of any per se. So anyway, it's just this is PMLS. This is what we do. We help property management companies and apartments.
The consistent issue that I feel like I've heard from every one of the clients that you've gotten on board is communication was horrible. Mm-hmm. That there was, they've got cases just languishing out there. If it doesn't get a default, it just sits.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is one of the things that we do really well. Jen is amazing at keeping everyone in the loop as to what's going on with all of their cases. We both are reaching out to clients on a regular basis to say, okay, hey, here's where we're at with this. What else? Is there anything else that we can do for you? And I think that is meaningful to our clients. And you see that in the reviews.
Yeah, it is. I would say that probably is the number one reason that clients love us is the communication. The responsiveness is the word. I'm sorry. Yeah.
We're getting it done. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think we're coming up on my time deadline that I wanted to set for us. Shannon, again, we're so excited to have you with our team, and I'm glad that you're excited to be here. We have, as you've mentioned, there's a lot of plans and visions ahead, and we're excited about accomplishing those goals. And I'm glad that people got to know you a little bit better, and get to know the Shannon that I've gotten to know. Although I've learned some things this morning about you. So thanks so much for doing this. Well, you can visit us on our website, pmlawsolutions.com. We have offices in Pensacola and Tampa. We service clients statewide. So if you're in the property management business, we'd love to talk to you, get to know you better, and see how we can help you and your company. So everyone, thanks for listening. And until next time, you guys have a good one.